Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello from the gutters of London to the gutters of New York. I've got three fine gentlemen in the room with me. Eric, welcome back. How are
Thank
you?
you very much. This is the first
And
time I'm on since the Geodesic Dome series last year.
it's great to have you, Eric. And at the top, we've got Anthony. Big up, Anthony. You all right, mate?
With you.
Glad to. Anthony's got a great story. Your father, Sal, was a civilian dispatcher the night Justice called in, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was one of three working in the radio room that night. Yeah, and obviously, Wheat was one of the others, and the third was a young kid by the name of Danny Broadinelli, who's obviously his initials are DB. Also, ironically,
What are the chances of that, DB? And he was a newbie, wasn't he, DB? He was a newbie in the room that night.
Yeah, he had only been there a matter of days when that call came in, and he, like my father, he also went on to become a Yonkers police officer, and they both actually eventually became captains in the Yonkers Police Department.
So your father answered the phone to Justice and passed the call to Wheat, didn't he?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard she's been denying that lately. I don't really know why. He told me that story when I was very young, and Danny Broadinelli, the other dispatcher in the room, he confirmed it a lot of years later. So I don't, my father's not a liar. I don't know why she would deny that, but that's the way the story.
That's the equivocation. I have nothing against the lady, but that's the ambiguity with her, of almost as if there's and I'm saying this with compassion. I'm not knocking. It's from my dealings with her on Facebook messaging, electronic mail messages. It's almost as if there's a schizophrenic personality, and I mean that medically, where from one moment to the next, everything is reversed. The stories are reversed, or what you say is twisted. I believe your father and Badonelli, but
Broadinelli, yeah, right.
when you hear these different stories and twists and turns from her, it makes you question things. It's just like the opposite story that she has to that of Fred Deagle. There's just too much that goes one way and then suddenly it's twisted another way.
Yeah.
Sounds like somebody else, Eric.
I could back your father up, and I did groundwork in Yonkers, and I happened to meet his father before I met Anthony. As a matter of fact, while I was doing this, because of the groundwork I was doing, led me to his father. So there was other people that I talked to that were saying that his father did this. That's how I found his father, because he was the one who picked up the phone when Justice called that night.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Anthony, did your father ever explain, or the other fella, DB, or Justice, did they ever explain why, when they got the call, they had to give it to Wheat? Was she a superior, or why didn't they just take it and then tell the police as dispatchers? Why was it given to her?
Well, actually, the simple answer to that is because my father had been listening to Wheat in the dispatcher room talk about, when they're all friendly with each other. When they're not on a phone call, they talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically had the Breslin letter pinned up on the bulletin board. And because in the couple of months that led up to his arrest, she and her family and the Casaras had been putting together that it was him who was causing all this havoc and writing these letters down on Wicker Street, Warburton Avenue, where they lived. I guess I can only assume that she was looking at the things that were written in those letters and the things that were written in the Breslin letter, and putting his erratic behavior into the equation, and realizing this idiot is probably the guy going around shooting people. And so she was saying, basically, this is him. It's the same. I know it. No one's listening. And my father had been listening to her say this.
Yeah, but also, Anthony, too, Detective Lorenzo was a detective on this, but Peter Navallo and Tommy Chamberlain were assigned to that sector and were stopping at the car house a lot more, when the stuff was going on. So they were talking to those two police officers. So those three were actually looking into a lot of this with Sam more than anybody there, anybody at Yonkers Police.
Yeah, I'm sure that. Yeah, but that's what I mean.
So, we was privy to what was going on, with Tommy. And
she was
work,
she was involved. She was a victim.
Right.
Right.
So your father knew that.
Well, he knew it because she was telling me.
Right.
So the dispatchers will not have all that much contact with detectives.
Right.
Now, Tommy Chamberlain, his partner was an Italian fellow. Was his name Pete Navarro?
Intervallo.
That's it. Intervallo. Yeah. Well, Detective Alfred Chiavarini, who knew the Lorenzo family very well, he had known of Wheat. He told me that Intervallo was one of the best police officers you could meet, or any person. He would never brush anyone aside. He would actually listen to whomever spoke with him, and he would evaluate the information.
Right. Sure. I got that too, Eric. Yeah. I mean, that's why he was going out of his way. Yeah.
Yeah. And Intervallo and Navarro and Chamberlain actually went to the New York Police Department when they believed they knew who was one of the shooters, let's say, or the shooter. I don't know if they thought it was a group or not. And the New York Police Department did not want to take down officially their information at that time.
No, that's half true. They did contact New York City, Chamberlain and Navarro. They're the first law enforcement agents to call the Omega Task Force, accusing David Berkowitz of being the son of Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But to answer your question about what happened in the radio room that night when the call came in from the Omega Task Force, my father, having been there for a while, was familiar with Wheat talking this way about David Berkowitz possibly being the son of Sam. The other dispatcher, Danny Brodanelli, was not, because he had only been there like a matter of days, maybe even just 1 or 2 days at the time that call came in. So it was by good fortune that my father took the call. I mean, it would have been the same if Wheat had taken the call. Same thing. It was just that it was done by seniority. Now, Danny Brodanelli was the most junior of the dispatchers in the room that night. My father was next junior, and then Wheat was the most senior. So the kind of unfair way that it's done is that the junior guy will always take the call that comes in when nobody's on the phone. The junior guy will take the call that comes in, and if he's on the phone, he or she is on the phone when the next call comes in, then the second junior person will take it, and the senior person is just kind of off to the side chilling. And if everybody's on the phone, all the other people are on the phone, when another call comes in, then the most senior person, which would have been Wheat at the time, will take the call. Now, Danny Brodanelli told me that he was on the phone with someone else who had called the police at that moment, and he says thank God for that, because him being so brand new, he was unfamiliar with the things that Wheat was saying about David Berkowitz. So had the Omega Task Force called in and said, basically what they said to my father, we got this guy David Berkowitz, his car was parked down by the Moskowitz killing, a few nights ago. Can you send someone to his house? He's a potential witness. Can you send someone to his apartment building, knock on his door, ask him to get in contact with us? He probably would have just done it. He would have treated it like a routine call. And he probably would have dispatched a unit. But because he was on the phone and my father took the call and he was familiar with what Wheat had been saying, he said, whoa, hold on a second.
Right.
There's somebody here that you should talk to about this.
Right.
And he passed the phone to her.
We talked about this earlier, didn't we, Anne? If he'd have turned up DB's, he might have been blown away. I mean, anything could have happened. It could have changed the whole course of history involved in this case.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think that what would have happened is that had Danny Brodanelli taken a phone call and sent the car, that, I would like to think that when he hung up the phone, he would have turned to the other, my father and Wheat, and said, wow, listen to this call that just came in. And that, at that point, they would have said, whoa, stop that car. Wheat, probably would have called down and said, David Berkowitz was down there. Are you kidding me? And hopefully the conversation would have played out the same way that it ultimately did. And hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and this is a good segue into what we were going to talk about. Why did NYPD shut down the case so quickly? Why do you think?
Well, I mean, as I explained to Paulie, Neo, during a conversation that we had some months back, and a lot of people don't realize this about a municipal police department, even if it is a big department like the NYPD, is that the mayor of the city is the commander in chief of the police department, in the same way that the president of the United States is the commander in chief of the U.S. military. So when he takes a position on something, or gives orders, or wants to start a war or stop a war, they have no choice but to fall in line. So, it really wasn't the NYPD who shut the investigation down as soon as it was really starting. It was Beam who did it, and I think we all know why he did it. He was behind in the polls because of this other Sam situation.
Politics interfering. Right. But I would have to say, from the intimacy I have had with homicide detective Hank Chinotti, who got burned by this, even though he made a mistake to say he was on official business in Minot. He should have said, I just want to accompany my friend Maury Terry to make sure he's safe. And from Rothstein, who had a lot greater, and who got screwed, basically, by the New York Police Department. And even, who was the famous district attorney? Morgenthau? And all those people. There was an element of not wanting responsibility to really find the absolute truth about this case and to continue it, because it would disturb whatever their whole environment was. There's a lot of corruption there, and they didn't want that going on. And they will have police officers, detectives or not, be sacrificial lambs if those people are going to disturb what they have going for them. And that's also a part of the reason, and but at the same time, internally, if you speak even to cops today, whether retired or still working, this case within the New York Police Department is like a specter that haunts them. It carries on like a Greek story from mouth to mouth. They still believe there's something very strange and unanswered. And this is not conspirology, and this is not wanting to insist he was alone or with others. There's something unanswered for. Legally, I know this sounds naive. This case should have been thrown out as far as I'm concerned, because Beam should never have said, we've caught the killer, we've caught the murderer. He should have said, we caught the suspect. What went on with the two of them alone together? Did Berkowitz have a lawyer there with him while Beam was speaking with him?
No.
I think, okay, that's wrong. Just as wrong as when Nixon
said, but he waived his rights. When a cop reads you your rights and you say, go ahead, you're done. That's it.
He waived his rights.
That's what he did. He waived his rights about 10 times after getting arrested, because they all wanted to question him and knew they could do that if he said yes, and he did. So he confessed to everything. They shut the case down, my personal opinion, because this guy cooperated ridiculously. He literally gave them all leads leading to him. And they already had been through a year of chaos. Bronx was literally burning. They just wanted to close this. He had caused enough problems already. There was nothing that he said to them that would lead them to think they were accomplices.
But they're supposed to do some investigating independent of what he says. They are supposed to.
Yeah,
I hear you, but you got him confessing to 10, 15 DAs, detectives, doctors. I mean, he's confessing without stuttering. He's not tripping up. He knows all intricate stuff that's going on. I mean, every answer leads to just him. There's nothing that New York seen. He was telling them Sam, and they were talking to Sam, and all the police force knew Sam. So they knew whatever he was saying about Sam was outrageous.
But Neo, Anthony is right. An investigation doesn't end because he suddenly confesses to everything. They have to go forward to confirm that what he's confessing to is indeed the absolute truth and the guilt, because he could be covered up. He could even be like somebody in
Well,
a
isn't that why you go to trial?
yeah, that's right.
Well,
But-
he waived that right because he knew he was totally guilty. I mean, he knew.
But aside from the trial, the police are still supposed to go through with a law investigating.
But why waste the money, Eric? If this
And
guy,
what names was he giving them, Eric, to look for? Which
Yeah,
people
who-
are-
where-
I didn't say he was giving names. As Anthony has said, there's a procedure. There's a procedure that has
Correct,
nothing to do with the
correct.
court case. And that
But
does
looking
not,
for what?
and what
Looking
Irkowitz
for what?
said, Rena, does not exonerate Abe Bean. It
But
doesn't.
he didn't give them any names to for them to go on, did he? That's what
Well,
I'm
let me
saying.
give you an example of how protocol was deviated from rather intensely. You know, we've all seen the video of him being perp walked in front of hundreds of people, reporters from just about every, newspaper within 100
Every
miles
borough.
or whatever. Right. So it's a big crowd. That's for investigative purposes. And I was never a detective. This is just kind of common knowledge among cops, and it should meet standards of common sense. Is that you have witnesses who gave artist renderings. You have people who say that they saw the shooter, gave descriptions of them. Suspects, not all of them did, but some of them did. There were other witnesses and things like that. You get a person who you're pretty sure is the guy, you're supposed to bring him in the back door and make sure that nobody sees him until you can get some identifications done, right? You want to put him in a lineup. You want to show people, witnesses,
good point. Ant.
photograph arrays, so that they can pick him out.
He was
Hey,
like a
once they see
trophy,
his-
wasn't he?
Once they see his face all over the television,
Yeah.
okay, now you can't go through any of those identification procedures anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
He
And
was
that
like a
happened a
changed-
lot. That
If
happened
he
a
would have
lot.
changed his story 2 days later and said, no, it wasn't me, I must have been high or drunk or whatever. I didn't do any of this. They would have had a real problem. Okay, they would have had
Well,
a real big problem.
I only found out last week that Berkowitz handed over the keys to the apartment to the cops. They didn't even have to break the door down. He just
Oh, he
handed
totally
his-
cooperated. He got arrested. He gave the keys to Sarasi and said, "Get."
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Yeah,
I mean, he gave them everything. He was like the golden boy. Like, he literally gave them everything. You read his interrogation, and it's just like everything they ask him, boom, answers everything. He's like, over here you get no comment, no comment, no comment. He's answering everything.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that blew me away that he just handed over the keys to the apartment. Like, here you go.
it's not uncommon.
That's why they had no problem arresting him and not giving him a beating like they all wanted to. All those cops wanted to beat his ass when they arrested him, but he was so cooperative. He put them in a state of mind of feeling bad for him in a sense too. Like they couldn't believe how cooperative he was with everything. They couldn't get mad at him. It was that bad.
Yeah. I think they were expecting
Let
some
me ask
monster
you
raving loony.
Let me ask you this then. Why do you believe that everything he immediately said was true when we have a history of a man who keeps changing his stories, including in the book by Caparelli, which has an interesting side to it?
Not with law enforcement. I haven't seen him lie to law enforcement except for trying to pull the Sam story, which was part of his plan. But besides that, as far as the actual crimes committed and as far as the stuff that detectives asked him, I don't see him lying in any of the law enforcement stuff. Everything he says adds up. I mean, the first letter that he left on April 17th, okay, that wasn't put out to the public. The police kept that letter, only let out a little bit of it. So when they caught the killer, they'd be able to ask him questions. He knew every single part of that letter, as if the person who wrote it knew. So, I mean,
But what do you
a
mean?
lot of things it added up.
But what do you mean when you say he did not lie to law enforcement? You mean to a police officer, a detective? He never
Right.
lied to?
When he got arrested, he literally, as soon as he got arrested, I'm the son of Sam.
Right.
But me, you got me.
But you see, he still comes forward as possibly lying to them with the changing stories.
That's much
Where
later
did he
on,
change his story, Eric?
Not with the law enforcement. He started to change his story with other people bothering him from the outside.
All right,
Yeah.
you said bothering him. If
Right.
they were bothering him, he had a legal right to refuse having anything to do with them and speak with them.
Not
we know
when he's
Berkeley
seen the
was
attention
an
it brought him.
attention seeker.
Right.
Yeah,
What?
attention.
Not when he's
Attention.
seen the attention it was bringing him, you know?
Right, but you see, indirectly, he's lying to law enforcement. He's admitting that he lied to them when he comes out and says he was with others.
He doesn't say that to law enforcement.
No, you're not following me. Indirectly, he reveals that he lied to law enforcement when later he says to others, not in law enforcement, but
Yeah, and to others, it doesn't matter. All right, it's a game for him.
Convict him. They
They-
can't
they-
convict
he-
him, can they?
He controls the game without the law enforcement involved. When the law
I think,
enforcement involved, he seems to let them.
But
You
you
know.
see, that's where I find the whole thing corrupt. Just because he doesn't tell law enforcement, I lied to you, a man with a badge, and he's telling Maury Terry or different stories to one to Abrahamson and another one years later to Caparelli about demons, he is actually lying, saying, I lied to law enforcement.
Eric,
That's
Alright,
what he's.
So,
you know.
so yeah, I think the point he's trying to make is that Berkowitz is a crackpot, and anybody who is doing the things that he was clearly doing shouldn't be taken at their word for anything. But you know, especially when it's what you want to hear, right? They all want to sit down. They wanted to hear him say, "Yeah, it was all me. It's over with. You guys cracked the case. It's done. You did a great job. Now run out and get your promotions." They want to hear him say that, you know. So he shouldn't be taken at his word.
Here's a
It
very
should
good
be-
question.
But-
Why was he never called into a Yonkers precinct when there was a suspicion about him? Because we know that he was being suspected long before his arrest.
Not too long, but he was.
Right. I mean, Alfred Cavarini told me, he goes up to Mike Anthony Lorenzo and says, Mike, what the heck were you doing? Because Lorenzo, the father, with Ed Oakley,
Right.
was sitting on the landing scape into
But
Berkeley's apartment.
you know-
Why couldn't they get a proper from the judge? What is it? When you search somebody's, what is it, Anthony? The word is eluding me.
Search warrant?
A search warrant. Why couldn't they get a proper search warrant?
Well, what you don't know, Eric, and a lot of people don't understand is Sam Carr's relationship with the Yonkers Police Department. Okay. At that point, when he's complaining about Son of Sam, you don't understand how many complaints Sam Carr was going to Yonkers Police with, where to the point where he became annoying to them. Okay.
Mhm.
So, I explained this more in my book. I don't want to give too much, but the Yonkers Police didn't ignore this as much as you think. And Sam's relationship, I don't know directly with Lorenzo or with Yonkers Police, was that not that he was a bad guy, but that he complained about everything. So by the time it got to some serious complaining with him, they weren't taking him too serious. It wasn't so much they were ignoring. It was because it was from Sam. I've read articles where some of the officers said if it wasn't Sam complaining about this would have maybe been looked at differently. Not to down him,
I can accept what you're saying about Sam Carr, but the fact that you have two Yonkers detectives going to Berkowitz's apartment and looking through the window means that there was something serious that was considered. And Cavarini's whole point was, what are you doing if you know this man could be a murderer with guns? You're just looking in. If he had a shotgun, he could have blown you away. Get a search warrant.
Eric, I have Mike Lorenzo Sr. doing his job to a point. It looks like a little bit like he's just doing it to shut Sam up, but he still did things when Sam went to him that I seen.
I don't doubt that. I'm not against Lorenzo the father or Oakley. I'm saying, once again, I get back to what Anthony has given to us as a gift. There's a proper procedure. If you're going to investigate Berkowitz's apartment, you just don't go sit on the landing and look in the window. You get a search warrant.
You have to give them evidence to do that. Even Craig Glassman tried to get one after he's telling them they lit his thing on fire, his store on fire, and they didn't give it to him. They can't go and get a warrant just for letters they think Berkowitz wrote. There was nothing to go get. How could they get a warrant at that point?
That's up to the judge, really, and that's what it comes down
to. But what
So,
evidence you putting in the warrant application, Ant, to be able to do this?
Well, this discussion will basically be about everything that was happening in June and July of '77 on Wicker Street, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So, as I had said to you in an earlier conversation, right? The writings, they're almost like a fingerprint, right? So this is the way they caught the Unabomber, right? And you have this guy who he's over all these years, he's making these bombs who, by most accounts, were not terribly sophisticated bombs. But what he did do when he was making them was he took great care to not leave any evidence that would lead investigators back to him. No trace evidence, no fingerprints, no blood drops, no hair, hair fibers, things like that. Nothing that would lead back to him. But then he goes and makes a demand to a newspaper that he'll stop killing people if they publish his manifesto. So they kick it around and they decide to publish it. And I think it was like, a matter of days that his brother called the FBI and said, "That's probably my brother," And I think the only reason it took a matter of days is because his wife was trying to convince him to make the phone call. She was also familiar with his writings. So when you do a significant amount of writing, and it doesn't have to be hundreds of pieces, it could just be like a handful, it's almost like a fingerprint because you have a writing style, you have words that you use repeatedly throughout all of them, phrases. Right. And, the question arises, was there enough in the letters to the Cars and the Casares that matched the Breslin letter?
No. Absolutely. No. FBI looked at them.
They looked at handwriting.
FBI looked at Sam Carr's letters, Casares' letters, and with the help of Lorenzo Sr., some other documents sent with Berkowitz's writing on, and sent them to FBI in June. Came back before the arrest, inconclusive.
Right, but the problem, as I understand it, is that they sent all of those writing samples to the FBI to see if just those writing samples were all written by the same person.
Correct.
There was never any comparison to the Breslin letter, so it never really clicked in their heads. It never really clicked in their heads, like, let me look at this letter that was in the newspaper. And,
but
oh my God, look at
you're talking about similarities in writing styles and handwriting and that, and they gave him FBI samples, 3 letters, I think, 1 card, 2 letters, and his application to get into Pine Street where it had his handwriting signature on it. And FBI came back and no evidence. Go ahead.
I was just saying there was a partial print on one of the letters. Berkowitz's partial print on one of the letters. Partial fingerprint on one of the letters.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But if his fingerprints are not already on file, and they may have been because, I'm pretty sure you have to give prints over when you apply for a pistol permit, and he did have one, didn't he?
I was just going to say the gun permit. He had a gun permit.
What was the Federal Bureau of Investigation's final judgment on the handwriting, Anthony?
I'm sorry?
What was the Federal Bureau of Investigation's final judgment on the handwriting?
Inconclusive. They could not prove everything was written by Berkowitz. They could not prove that Berkowitz wrote the Casares and the Cars letters.
Right, but to the FBI, you have to understand. To the FBI at the moment, it was a trivial matter. It was a local detective trying to figure out whether some letters were some harassing letters from one neighbor to another were all written by the same.
It wasn't on the level of Son of Sam lookout.
Now, but if you go to with a search warrant and you write it up well and you bring it to a judge and you say, look, the Breslin letter sent by this Son of Sam idiot, Jimmy Breslin, and some of these other letters written, these harassing letters written to this individual's neighbor sound an awful lot alike. Plus, there's these incidents going on down on Wicker Street Molotov cocktails being thrown at people's
Well,
houses.
they were putting it together,
Right.
They didn't go to sleep and wake up and say, "Oh, we got it." And they were putting it together at that time, So that's what I mean. It wasn't. Yeah.
Now, when you, in your quest for some of the information that you were able to obtain in order to write the book, letters, documents, and stuff, without going into specifics, you were given a number of variations as to why they had disappeared. I call them excuses, but to you, they were reasons. You were given reasons by the Department of Branch.
What, the files?
Yeah, it was like what They were stolen, or they disappeared in a flood, or
They were
lost without explanation. Right?
It's true, though. It ain't. It's true. I mean, again, you want to assume I've actually seen it myself. I've seen precincts flooded myself. I've seen files ruined myself.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that with files that important from an internationally known case, you would think that you would take care to have several copies.
My opinion,
in case if there is a flood. In my opinion, they were disappeared on purpose, and I'll tell you why.
My opinion, New York City shit on Yonkers, and Yonkers was pissed. Had lawsuits coming down on them. Close everything. That's why nobody knows what's in my book. Nobody knows what happened to Yonkers because they got fed up. Close everything.
Look, I agree. They were deliberately taken from the precinct and hidden. I don't believe it was careless.
No, it was either if you don't have it in, keep them or send them down New York. They didn't want nothing to do with this. They weren't getting the credit. Yonkers was not getting the credit that they deserved.
Neo, maybe there were the law enforcement people in New York who were giving the Yonkers credit, and we don't know about it. We're looking just at the. But let me ask you this, Neo: the missing documents, the 57 pages of the. It had to do with Edward Zigo and it had to do with Cherazi Surlock. Were they not the police documents that a detective gave to a fireman friend, and they were lying for 47 years on his shelf and missing the precinct?
I don't know. These files just found me. Eric. I'll get into all that.
No, I'm not going against you, Neo. The fact of the matter is that you have these files. They're not ruined in a fire or a flood. And this story of floods in police precincts is common for covering up crimes. I investigated a murder of two people my parents knew down in Georgia, and they always come up with the fact of, well, we had
I'm not saying they don't.
No, Neo, I know that. I'm not going against you, but still, this is serious. We're talking about deaths and living victims.
But Eric, you've got to remember, he's been in prison so long now. What is it to them? What good it is to them to keep his stuff? Nothing's going to change it.
Rena, you don't understand. These files, as Neo explained to me, were taken out of the Yonkers police precinct, and this family had them for 47 years. And then because a young man knew that Neo was investigating documentation and witnesses, says, oh, I have a friend. He heard of you, and his father was giving over 40 years ago these police files. That's criminal.
Okay, we all have things that we keep in the cupboard and forget about, don't we? This case is not
that's ridiculous. Don't you see? It's not about forgetting in the cupboard or going through my closets after Perfect Storm Sandy and saying, look at these old photos. These were documents illegally taken
but Eric,
from police.
I would agree with you if they were hiding something, but they weren't. The cops were telling you the truth. Everything I had in there added up to what eventually was. So it wasn't like they were the reports were not shown to hide anything. Yonkers wasn't hiding anything. There was no corruption by the police. They just weren't in the right place. They were never handed in. I don't think they were sent down New York or told to kept. They did. I can't explain where they were or what happened. I just found them.
So you're saying, Eric, because they're historical documents, they should have been kept somewhere more safe.
You don't take. I don't know if Anthony agrees with me. You don't take police reports from a precinct and tell a friend, yeah, you take these and put them away someplace, and they're hidden for over 40 years.
Well, a lot of cops had their reports from then. And even Murphy's was what, 96, Anthony? There was no reports in Yonkers for Murphy. I was told either he didn't hand them in or I don't know. I don't know how that works, but there was
So he
no
didn't.
work of Murphy stuff in there.
You,
So
you think
you know,
he conducted
just
an
an error with no
investigation?
computers. You know,
Well,
No,
I
no,
was
no.
told by Rothstein that Murphy suffered. Something happened to him in Yonkers.
Oh yeah, he did.
He suffered because he went into this case. Now, there's one other thing that I just learned about. You mentioned Murphy. Mike Cordella, New York Police. When he was a detective sergeant. I did not know, and this was kept hidden, that the New York Police Department actually permitted a reinvestigation of the Son of Sam case in the 90s. I've just been informed of this by Cordella, and he and one of his detectives were investigating it. This was in unison with he being the first one, not as somebody's trying to tell me, Murphy being the first, with John Tiny Lentini getting in touch with him, his interest in the Eitan Potts case. And he just revealed to me he worked with Murphy. I never heard of Cordella working with Murphy. And he just revealed it to me. I worked with him and my fellow detective. But then the New York Police Department closed us down. So this did not take place when Rothstein came up in 96 because Cordella never met Rothstein. But this is something very curious. On the inside, silent, hidden, the New York Police Department was permitting Cordella to take one of his detectives to reinvestigate aspects of the Son of Sam case, and he worked with Murphy. He gave it to me in writing just this morning.
well, let's say they let them look at it and open it up. What are they going to find? I think the law enforcement knows fully that it's a waste of time.
If it's a waste of time, why did they reopen it?
The DA, that was Maury pushing it, and like I said, you know, a lot of there's a line there. A lot of people
What did,
thought,
what did,
And they didn't really. By the way, they didn't really reopen it. That I listened. I looked at a lot of the stuff on the People versus David Berkowitz. I listened to a lot of the interviews, and just the way the entire reopening of the case. What did the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the whole reopening of the investigation? You listen to those interviews and the way the questions are asked. Basically, they reopened it with the sole intention of confirming all of the conclusions that they had already arrived at.
wait, what are we talking about the reopening? When?
79.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I'm talking about the 90s.
Oh, you're talking about Kevin Murphy.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the 90s. Cordella joins the force well after that.
Okay.
What did they find? What did they find, Eric? Did they find anything?
yes, same thing with the DA. A lot of money was wasted with
There was
that
a
opening of the DA.
There was a lot that Cordella had found, but it's closed. They closed.
But think about that, Eric. Okay, you got your reopening with the Brooklyn DA, with Santucci, right? Think about how much money was wasted and nothing. They even went out to Minot. Nothing was brought that did anything, changed anything.
But how do we know money was wasted?
Oh, well, how much is it? They went all over. They went out to Minot. I mean, well, how long was the investigation reopened for? That's all wasted money.
It was about 2 years.
Yeah. And that's the second.
That's a lot of money, Eric.
Eric,
Of course.
Eric, why do you think Maury was so unhelpful to Herb Lifer?
Unhelpful?
Yes. If you listen to Maury's Queen's DA tape, Herb's trying to get the name of this woman that he's corresponding with, that Maury's corresponding with, and Herb's trying to find out who is this woman, and Maury just will not give him her name.
Okay, there's one thing. Why is that type of a discussion being recorded?
Because it's part of the DA investigation.
Okay, Maury Terry was right not to say it on the recording. He's a journalist doing.
No, he wouldn't give him to it at all on recording, off recording.
No, he's got a point there, but I still don't buy it. What he's saying is he's trying to keep his sources. I understand that, but still, I mean, when you're not from the DA, you're trying to not from the DA.
You've got to reopen it.
He's trying to keep his sources the same way he didn't reveal what the police were telling him about Karen Ann Valstrom.
So how are they meant to investigate if Maury's not giving them any names? That's what I'm saying.
Let me give you a little perspective on that. Let me give you my own answer as to why he might not give the name of somebody like that, right? Because if you're sitting down with people who you believe have an agenda, for example, if Maury believed that the only reason they reopened this case, quote unquote, reopened it. It was a sort of a shoeshine investigation where their sole intention was to just go out and find nothing and, ask leading questions that lead them right back to their original conclusions. In other words, if he believes they're conducting a disingenuous investigation, he doesn't want to give them information that they don't already have, because he believes that all they're going to do with that information is start trying to figure out ways to discredit him. And that's what the brass does a lot of times. Well, where did you get this from? Who did you get this from? And if they're afraid that that person's information is credible and they don't want it out there, they don't want people to believe it, the first thing they'll do is they'll start working to discredit that person before the information ever even comes out. It's called poisoning the well.
And you're exactly right, because nobody is looking at what Maury Terry corresponded with the Assistant District Attorney of Queens, Tom McCarthy. He keeps saying, why aren't you looking into this? Why isn't LIFA going anywhere with this information? Hank Chinotti does not want to spend his own money on this. He can't. Why aren't you following up on this? I'm paraphrasing.
I hear you guys. I do, but I don't. I hear you guys, but I don't buy it. Not to the law enforcement. He shouldn't be like that with. He's going to them for help, trying to get things done. You got to help them. You got to give them everything. Them. I understand keeping your sources. I know where you guys are talking from, but I myself ain't buying it when it comes to him talking to Santucci.
Did Maury not think she was credible enough to give her name?
I wouldn't say that.
That could be. It could be a simple explanation like that.
Right. It's so common that a journalist is not supposed. There's no reciprocation. Read what he's saying to McCarthy. He says, "Why aren't you getting LIFA to follow up on this?" So if LIFA is not going to follow up on something important, why should he be giving LIFA a name that most likely he may not do anything with?
Well, then why have them reopen the case if you don't want them to follow up on the things that you think?
Yeah.
Look, he wants them to open up the case. Maury Terry doesn't have the power to put the money into action to reopen the case.
But why wasn't he giving them as much ammunition as he needed them to have to get an indictment done on someone else? Why was there no indictments ever handed out to any other suspects when Queen's DA reopened this investigation?
Right. And they talked to everybody. Sparaza, they talked to everybody that was around this guy. A lot of money wasted on that. Think of all those audio recordings. There had to be, 40?
The truth of the matter is that you'd have to ask LIFA or Santucci, who's now dead, why that wasn't done.
No, why was no one else ever arrested or implicated in the Son of Sam crimes? Why was nothing uncovered?
Well, there have been people implicated, but maybe not, but not arrested. People can be implicated and not arrested.
Could you tell me why? I understand the girl thing too, but can you tell me why, when LIFA is, you have an in to go see him, you think that me and you can go see him right away? Maury says no. I don't know about you, but if I'm Maury, I kind of want to bring the DA in there and get the hell out of the way and let the DA. It makes some sense out of that to me. Why would he not? If he could get the DA in there, right? Why would he not want to do that?
He probably had a very, very good reason. I have to give the doubt.
There are a number of possibilities. It could be he didn't think that the people he was talking to and getting information from were credible enough. It could be that he just didn't trust the DA's office.
Oh, so then what are you bothering them for? What are you having them reopen the case for?
Was he bothering the DA's office or was he bothering the NYPD?
He's one of the if he did not carry on, Maury, the way he did, the DA would not have reopened.
Right. Yeah, but we're not dealing with somebody who's controlling people like robots. The DA did not have to reopen this case.
You're right.
They didn't have to reopen the case. Now, Wheat Carr wrote to me that maybe Santucci did it for a reason of politics because there was re-election. Well, but the fact of the matter is, well, why didn't Mario Merola reopen it and that pervert Eugene Gold? They didn't go reopening it. He didn't force them.
That's what Captain Borelli said, that Santucci reopened it because he was lagging in the polls or whatever, and that's why he.
Yeah, and would Santucci want to spend all of that money, which today would be maybe millions,
A lot.
reopening an investigation. I mean, it's pretty. That's a good way to lose an election. I don't really, I'm not a cynic, but I don't really think people in Queens gave a second thought about this case after to think, oh, look, finally something's being done about the son of Sam. No, their reasoning was he's arrested. We've read the newspapers. We've seen that show. I don't think people really, I don't think it meant that much to the election, this case.
Oh, I think it did. Yeah.
To the 77 election, it did.
Yeah. So that's
Not
why,
later on.
I can come at you guys and say, you guys got to stop assuming, but these things are real. You're right. I mean, I'm not saying that they did do things for them to get positions, but it's a realistic point of view. You know what I mean?
So when it comes to elections, things like public sentiment, when people feel safe, that favors the incumbent. When people feel, relatively content with their lives, happy, that favors the incumbent. When there's, apparently a maniac on the loose, killing random people periodically, and, the NYPD, the mayor, they're no closer to catching him, a year and change into it than they were on day one. That's bad for the incumbent. I mean, that's the kind of thing that moves polls. So
Right.
that's what Abe Beam and every other politician on the earth understands. So they're dying for a body to march in front of the cameras so they can step up to the podium and say, "It's over with. Now
Right.
get back to liking me and
Right.
considering voting for me." So it's when a case takes on that kind of magnitude. Politics comes before everything. It comes before law. It comes before propriety. It comes before morality. It comes before everything.
Morality, as you said, it's just like
Right.
a politician who claims certain ethics, even religious ethics, but he'll whore himself to lobbyists.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
So Abe Beams, and I'm not saying that they didn't really believe that it was one killer, because in most cases of a serial killer, it is. There have been, exceptions to that. There have been serial killers situations where it was more than one person, but in most cases, it's usually just one person, usually a guy. So when you have some idiot writing, it's saying that it's basically just me. I am the son of Sam. He's using I throughout the letters. He's building up the public perception that it's just one person. So the setting was sort of the what's the word I'm looking for? The situation was sort of set for one person to be caught, marched in front of the cameras, and everybody to be told that it's all over with. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that still doesn't justify the massive deviations from standard operating procedure that we witnessed on the night that he was caught. It doesn't, you know what I mean? So it's
Not at all, because
I disagree again.
yeah, but
Why wasn't he wearing a bulletproof vest? I always wonder that. They marched him out there. No one's. I mean, he could have been shot.
why was everybody told Edward Zigo was the arresting officer when it's just Felicito? He was the
Right.
arresting officer.
Yeah.
It just look.
I mean, anyone could have been. Anyone could have been in that press bit and shot him.
There are police. I've spoken to a retired police officer. I'm not going to name the fellow, but he knew Donna Lauria's brother, who was a detective. I didn't know her brother was a detective. And they've said, Borelli is nothing but a piece of shit. They're all fucking lying bastards. They just wanted to get this thing over for politics.
Say it like it is.
That's my impression of a lot of detectives, but
I mean, Borelli's full of shit, claiming he doesn't know Rothstein. Oh, gee, I can't remember him. He was scared shit when Rothstein was brought back to New York by Murphy.
I thought NYPD were meant to be the finest.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah, well, they are, but I mean, look, if you want to see how dominant politics was in the situation, just look at the fact that all of them got promotions afterwards. And it was my personal opinion that I expressed to Neo. I don't really remember to what degree you agreed or didn't agree. But I said, what are they all getting promotions for? What did they do? I mean, the guy got a parking ticket. It was the residents of Wicker Street and Warburton Avenue that did most of the investigative work. So, you know, before he got a parking ticket at the last homicide, you know, it was like that scene from that Batman movie, right, where they're talking about the investigation into the, you know, the identity of the Batman is ongoing. He crumples up a piece of paper and throws it at the wall, and they have the wall is full of the list of suspects, and they got pictures of Bigfoot. You know, like they have nothing on who Batman is. Right. So it was the same thing up until that night. They had zero on who the Son of Sam was. Zero. Yeah. All of the investigative work they did amounted to absolute failure.
So was it the parking ticket?
Yeah, I would be really salty if I was those Yonkers cops and you see all them being paraded on the stage, getting their hands shaking and then in front of the cameras, and he's like, you know, where's our props? What do we get?
Well, they did get honored. You know, Mayor Beam honored them, but I think the fact that they seen, I mean, I think there was 25 officers, maybe a little bit more promotions, and they knew that it was their work that got them there. You know, you just basically told 25 people or whatever it was who they promoted that got involved to get those promotions that day to go get them, and they got them. You know, but I think what upset them was the amount, and they knew that they had done the work up to, you know.
I met Ed Zigo's nephew, not a blood nephew. Ed Zigo was part of the family. He called him uncle. This young man, I want to get his name. I'll be able to get it. He's the first one in the generation that doesn't go into the police force. His father was a detective. He had a choice of going on the Son of Sam with Zigo or this. There was a lot of black militancy going on, Black Panthers, they claimed, and he went to that area. He didn't want anything to do with the Son of Sam. When his father taught him and every member in the family that there was only one thing they were to say about the Son of Sam case, and that was to keep their mouths shut. He went like this with his finger. Keep quiet about this. Don't you ever speak about this case. There's something that's not right. Maybe even
Zigo in his because Zigo didn't make the arrest. Glassman did. That's why, and they don't want to get out.
Glassman made the arrest, not Zigo.
You know, from Zigo's end, he, you know.
I thought it was Joseph Folicito who made
it. Was Gardella. Right. Yeah, it was the three. But, you know, I mean, you just see Zigo holding the gun, right, Eric? You know, all these years, you just know Zigo with the arrest. But
it was they were there and they drew their guns and they handcuffed the guy. But basically, the investigative work was done by the cars and the Casares, and then the identification of the guy was done by Craig Glassman.
Right.
Well, that's an example that Chiavarini gave me. He was just a police officer, but he had integrity. He wasn't a detective. And at Yonkers, they said, we want you to help Ed Oakley with this murder and things that are going on. Oakley didn't do a bloody thing, and Chiavarini discovered everything, and then he became a detective. You know, there's always a lot of people. The person way up out front is not necessarily the one who does everything. They may be designated as the head of something, but there's always somebody else who's really, you know, you're a manager of a baseball team, but you're not the guy at bat.
Well, you always see the same detectives on all these Son of Sam documentaries. You see Joe Coffey, you see Borelli, sometimes Zigo, sometimes, I don't know. But you never see the ones that were really, really involved.
That's the way it always is, because they have to sell a product. Then these films are not made to do documentary investigation. It's not like Marcus Valentin with the Clown and the Candyman. These people are not out there to investigate anything new. They're selling a product, and they put it forth the anniversary, the 40th anniversary. And within on CBS and Investigation Discovery, you have two different films. It's just to sell something. It's a meme. You sell something. People get excited over it. That's all it is.
Yeah, and another thing is, of all the documentaries I'd ever seen on David Berkowitz, none of them had ever talked about there being someone else involved. It was always David was the lone shooter.
No, that's not true.
Barking dog.
No, Rena, you're forgetting.
Until I saw Netflix, I'd never even heard the other theories.
Rena, I told you of the Columbia Broadcasting System one that was, I think, August 11th. It was on a Friday, 48 hours. I think the guy's Ray Padilla who did it. And I told you that the most interesting interview I've ever seen him give was to Maurice Dubois, where he says, "Were you alone or not?" And
no, I'm talking about documentaries, not like documentaries. You know, like documentaries. That was just an interview of Maurice Dubois, wasn't it? And he went to the prison to speak to him.
yeah, but that's the only time that Berkowitz never said yes
Yeah,
or no.
I mean, like in the past, when you watch documentaries, until Netflix, I had never heard of Maury Terry. I'd never heard of there being multiple shooters until the Netflix documentary came out.
Oh, I read the book.
I mean-
I read the book probably about, I would say, 2017. I was a sergeant working in the 1st Precinct in Yonkers on the midnight shift. It's a pretty quiet precinct, and you know, when you work the quietest shift in the quietest precinct, sometimes during that 8 hours, you got to find ways to occupy your time. So I was reading the book, and then my lieutenant at the time, a fellow by the name Dennis DiPonato, he's retired now. Also, he was an avid reader. And what we would do sometimes is we would read some of the same books at the same time. You know, like, I heard you paint houses. We read that one at the same time. He got a copy. I got a copy, and then we read it and we talked about it as we were reading. You know, and,
Book club.
Right, something like that. So one of the books we dove into was The Ultimate Evil, and you know, then we were talking about it, and especially being from Yonkers and being familiar with some of the people in the book.
And your father.
Right? My father was not mentioned in it. He's never mentioned in any of the books, the stories about the Son of Sam.
Not yet.
And his role is really not all that. It's not all that interesting. It's not like it makes for a better story that Weed answered the phone herself. So I understand why he's left out. You know, I had read the book and I was, you know, it was interesting. But as a cop, you realize that there's a whole lot of speculation and there's not really anything hard that tends to prove any of the things that he's saying in it. The biggest thing under suspicion in the book is, you know, obviously the sketches of 9 different people that look completely different from each other. That's like kind of the eye-grabbing thing from the book.
Yeah,
I'm just saying I had read the book a long time before the documentary came out.
It's a very good narrative. I only have the 1987 one. And it's a very good narrative. He writes well. He was able to get it published at Dolphin Doubleday by Harry Daly, who's in the book, the chapter on Death Mask. And
do you want to sell it to me, Eric?
No, but I have the other one. And the reason why I want to go to the other one, which doesn't have also an index, is because of something I came across that people say they've known of, and I never did. I'm reading Peter Levender's Sinister Forces, a grimoire, American political witchcraft, The Nine, A Warm Gun, The Manson Secret. And all of a sudden, I come across on page 191 that Nathan Herman Berkowitz, known as Nat Berkowitz, his stepfather, remarries after Pearl dies. And the woman is Juliet. We found her name. Oh, boy. Starts with an F. We did find her name, though.
Yep.
Fitzman or something, right? That was the name, something like that. And
we did this last weekend, didn't we?
Right. Yeah. And the reason why I wanted to look her up is because Lavender writes, and the source is either from The Ultimate Evil, the 2nd edition, 1999, which has some more information, or it's, I don't think he ever mentioned it to Dr. Abrahamson, but Berkowitz states that he was introduced to the occult by his stepsister. And we found out the name to be Diane. You looked it up. You heard it mentioned by Nat Berkowitz when interviewed by Herbert Leifer. So supposedly Juliet's daughter from another man or marriage introduced Berkowitz into it. That's a very interesting thing. Astman. That's the name. The maiden.
Julia F. Astman. And
Right.
the daughter was Diane.
The daughter is Diane Astman. I believe
Yes.
I found where she lives. I want to try and contact her.
And I also found out, Eric, that Diane, the daughter, was not at Nat and Julia's wedding.
Right. So she would have been she would have been at that time She's 7 years older than Berkowitz. She's 77. If this is the same woman, and he's 70, so at that time she was 25 years of age. So, some children don't want to be at a wedding of a second daddy or a second mommy. These things happen. But
So it says he later claimed his new stepsister was interested in witchcraft, sparking an interest in the occult would later pursue more actively. So I find it interesting.
yeah,
was
it is
she
very, very.
the reason that he
Now, I
started
would like to
looking
find out where Aspman was from. Where was she living? Where was this young lady born? I would have to interview her. I would want to interview her because it's a missing link. I never come across her name with in his letters with Dr. Abrahamson. I don't think I've ever come across it anywhere. I know that the woman in Germany said yes, she had heard that, but where it is, I just don't know, and I blame these people who don't have indexes in their books. But I don't think she's even named. Lavender doesn't name her, because if she had been named in The Ultimate Evil, he would have named her. He names her mother, Juliet, but he doesn't name Diane because her name is not known, and the Queens District Attorney tapes are not released until 2022. So I find it's a missing link. You always discover something new in history.
I think it's really interesting because I think that's one of the big mysteries of this case. How did David get into Satanism and the occult? Because clearly he had some interest in it, didn't he?
Oh,
Where
he
was
had
it
a interest.
from?
And she falls into that gap.
Yeah.
She falls into the gap where somewhere there he was Christian and decided to go the other way.
My impression of him is that he would join any new club where he could potentially make a few new friends. Like you want to worship Christ today and make a few new friends. If that doesn't work out, then we'll try Satanism tomorrow and try to make a few new friends that way. He was a loner.
Yeah. But it's a funny thing. Aleister Crowley. I had a friend who was a metaphysician, involved with spirituality. He originally had been an Orthodox Hindu, not New Age movement, no belief in reincarnation. And he became the foremost Roman Apostolic Catholic traditional theologian after the Second Vatican Council. And his father knew Aleister Crowley in England. And his father's second or third wife had sex magic with Aleister Crowley, and she lost the child. So I said, what do you make Rama? His name was Rama Pannambalam Kumaraswamy. He was a doctor of surgery.
Oh,
Became a psychologist. And I said to him, what do you make of Crowley? And this is where I'm going towards Berkowitz. He says he was a saint gone bad. I said, why? Because to dedicate himself that much to evil, he had to be a saint who just went the other way. So there is a similarity perhaps with Berkowitz. There's a similarity here, but Berkowitz, you caught him lying, Rena and Neo. Did he not say to Caparelli he never read the Satanic Bible of LaVey?
He told Abrahamson that he'd never read the Satanic Bible, but he told Maury and Caparelli and a few others that he had read it.
Yeah,
but
so
I have the letters where he says he read the Satanic Bible, but he said he much preferred reading Aleister Crowley. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, that's the letter I read out to you. Yeah. He likes to read Crowley. Yeah.
And also this thing that I put up about him telling Caparelli that he was being haunted by demons. But then when we get to Abrahamson and others in that period, he says the whole demon thing was made up. So
well, the demon thing was made up, but he really was being tortured in a sense,
Right. Yeah, I think
you know what I mean?
But when he was writing letters, I think to him that the demon stuff was like analogous.
Right.
He was describing these people and their dogs who weren't letting him get any sleep. He was describing them as these effing demons, and you know. So and then I guess maybe
I
at
do the
some point it
same.
just took on a life of its own, you know.
Oh, I
Right.
can
I-
agree with you because there is figurative language, Anthony, and you have a good mind. But if you read what then the interstitium of Caparelli's book, which is mostly about him, he starts, in my opinion, he starts going to the Bible about demonic possession and being attacked by the devil and things. And it's a completely different narrative, that he presents to us with Berkowitz. But what I want to know is I want all 100 hours of those tapes to be released publicly, just like Jack Jones's tapes. Caparelli should release all 100 hours because I'm very suspicious and I'm going to be open about it. And my question hasn't been answered. Michael Francese liked the comment I put up. Somebody made him take down the hearted comment. I don't care if it's taken down. I don't feel offended, but there's things that are missing there, and I'm suspicious. I'm sorry of Caparelli. I don't want to hurt him, but I have to be suspicious. Why, when Francese is asking Berkowitz about the military, did the military do anything to? There's a cut in the film. There's a jump cut. We don't have what was said. It's all cut.
I just think out of respect, maybe Berkowitz didn't want him to talk about it. I personally, I'm not saying anybody's wrong here, anyone in these squares, but I personally don't think Caparelli had any intention of hiding anything or trying to cover, or how he maybe gotten good relationship with Berkowitz, but I don't think he's trying to hide anything.
But if he's not trying to hide anything, why does he tell Carl Denaro, if you come up with me, you have to agree to a stipulation of not asking certain questions?
I don't know exactly what was said or asked to him with that, but if that's asked, Eric, I'd have to say that's probably under what Berkowitz demands if he's going to talk to anybody. You know what I mean? I don't think it's up to Caparelli to decide. I think it's what Berkowitz tells him. I don't want to talk about or talk.
But you see, that's the catch-22. What's the purpose of going to meet him? We got a guy with a plate in his head who was.
There is no purpose. But giving him attention. I told you that. There's nothing he can do for you at this point.
Okay, so if there's no purpose, okay, I'm not going against you. I'm taking what you're saying and accepting.
Well, for Carl, there was.
Please.
That's what the purpose was. Right.
Please, if there's no purpose, then why even go there? Doesn't it just become another salesmanship of a murder?
I really don't need another interview by him, but Carl going up there had purpose. That had purpose. That was meant to be. That has purpose, and that's it. I mean, when that all went down, I did not want to even go near that situation. The purpose was for Carl, and that's the only purpose I could see anyone seeing him, or Craig's daughter, somebody who's been straightly affected by this. There's a purpose, but us, no.
Neo, in November 2021, he forgives David. I spoke to Carl on the phone. He forgives David Berkowitz 3 times. And David Berkowitz says to him what he had said before: I was at your shooting, but it was the woman who shot. Then all of a sudden, I'm told there's a paradigm shift, and the Lord will come out of the sky, the Holy Ghost, as if it's Pentecost Sunday. And with Caparelli and Denaro both there, Berkowitz decides to tell the truth. Nobody gets up. Carl should have gotten up and said, wait a minute, what are you doing to me?
I would say, again, that's Carl's moment and it's Carl's subject. Maybe he did. Maybe that's Carl. Maybe that is how Carl left there. What am I supposed to be thinking? I lied to me 2 years ago. Tell me the truth now. Oh, this is just, what am I doing even coming in here? I don't know. I just got Carl in there. That was a purpose, and I let him have it. I don't know anything past it.
I think you did well. I'm not going against you, Neo. You know that.
No. I don't think you are. No.
Listen to me. Maybe Carl did say that, but Carl also told me something else. And I believe I got it right. If not, I want him to correct me. That he was angry at Caparelli, and 100 pages were changed in the book because Caparelli was writing things that about Carl or a situation were not true. Now, I believe Carl told me that. If I am wrong, I will apologize and want the story straight. Look,
I don't know.
Caparelli, let's have the 100 tapes. All right, we're talking about people murdered. We're talking Donna Lomino. You know what it is? She wanted to be a dancer, and she's got her spine cracked, and she ends up 40 years a paraplegic in a wheelchair. These are the things that should be talked about in going after the truth with this piece of excrement.
I don't think David would have ever even discussed this stuff with Caparelli, Eric. All they seem to talk about is what David wants to talk about.
Right.
And I've heard Caparelli try and ask him things before.
Right.
And David just shrugs him off. It's that David just does not want to discuss the crimes in detail. And I don't think he's even done it with Caparelli. His friendship, their friendship seems really, genuine.
Yeah,
I don't even.
Berkowitz is the kind. Berkowitz is the kind who wants to keep people coming back to him, trying to get more information out of him.
There you go. Right.
He's in jail. He's in jail for the rest of his life.
He's a carrot dangler.
As bored now as he was before he got arrested.
Well,
and equally as batshit. So I mean,
you're right. You're absolutely right, Ant. Because when I came across Caparelli, he was doing the same things to him as he had done to everybody else. That's what he was doing. So,
yeah. So put it this way: in the 90s, he was a Maury Terry. By all accounts, he had already been a born again or reformed devout Christian for some time,
right?
Because that happened like basically right after he went to prison, right? So think about it. Either in the 90s when he was talking to Maury Terry, he was a reformed devout Christian lying through his damn teeth and messing with people's lives, or just recently he's a devout Christian reformed lying through his damn teeth messing with people's lives. So at some point he's up to his old at one time or the other. He was lying through his damn teeth as a Christian. And to me, that just means, like a guy like Carl shouldn't even be talking to him because he's going to do nothing but mess with Carl's head.
He's only torturing the man.
Right, exactly.
I agree now, Anthony. I agree now, but
the phone with me.
I had this conversation with someone earlier. I know plenty of Christians that lie. Just because you're Christian doesn't mean you're exempt from lying.
That's why
but not like that, Rena. I mean, you're making up stories.
Yeah, when it comes to something as serious as he should be straight.
And it's very easy for him not to. I mean, he is leading all this stuff on.
Why can't he keep to the same script? It's the truth.
In all of these interviews, he's very straight-faced and convincing, but they're totally conflicting stories. So he's lying during one of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's always centered and strong when being questioned. Other than the fact that these are films like Made in Hollywood, these new shows. We're not getting all 3 hours or 4 hours of the interview. I want things unedited, the complete thing. That guy, it's plus there's another point that I was speaking, Sandra London was talking to me, and I don't discard this. He looks in the mirror. He also has a symbol, a cut not far from his jugular vein. And I do agree with her and Rothstein that was a possible hit. So he goes back and forth with different stories. Why would he be attacked in prison?
The guy wanted to make a name for himself.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe the guy wanted to make a name for himself, but that must have an effect upon him. That scar.
Well, he said it was one of the best things that ever happened to him in prison because it made him realize what he was dealing with, who he was dealing with.
Abrahamson. Do you remember what he said to Abrahamson? I willed it. I willed him to attack me. Once again, a different story. I willed him. And that thing about willing it to happen goes hand in hand with that letter that got Manny sick. And I was sick after. And Manny, it's not because Manny was weak. It was we had to finish with Psychiatric Sunday. We wrote to each other. It was getting us sick because you're reading things that are normal, but from a twisted perspective. He said it's the most important letter I think he ever wrote to Abrahamson, 1981, where he says, I said, let's act this out. I did that so that we can enliven it. And the last line got Manny sick. because he's strong in that point, Manny. He was sensitive. It makes anybody sick about how he'd want his nieces on either knee to tell them just what he did. He wrote that to Abrahamson. And in that letter, he said to Abrahamson, and this is something never to discard and to keep at the back of your minds. He said, don't you see Schwartz, the police, everybody? They're my puppets. I do what I want with them.
Puppet
That's a
master.
letter.
Yeah.
That's a very
Berkowitz is still the puppet master.
that's a very, very important letter.
So if you guys are all admitting here that Berkowitz is a puppet master, then what would Maury be?
I think Maury Terry, and I agree with Hank Chinotti, and I agree with Peter Lavenda. He hit on things that were true, but he was overwhelmed. Let me put it in my words. Can you still see me? He could not handle all the information he got. He didn't have the cultural background, the intellectual integrity to understand when he came. Look, Chiavarini, he finds this guy with a license plate with the word magic on it. So I spoke to Chiavarini and he laughed. He said, sure, I had Magic 12 on my license plate because I was the 12th stage magician in a certain style of doing magic on stage.
How about Eric? How about Maury's investigation did not include the cops? How about that? How about if he accepted what the cops were trying to show him and tell him? They gave up, didn't even want to help him out. Nobody wanted to help him out from the law enforcement side. He made it that way. So this whole investigation that I've came up with cop help, he did not see. He couldn't get his hands on files because he didn't want to cooperate with the cops. So
yeah, but also the most valuable stuff that you got didn't come from the cops.
Absolutely did.
No, they came from.
The report was from a dead detective. The files I found and the reports before him came from the chief of police. All those police records and testimonies of what really happened in Yonkers was definitely. I was helped. The police helped me.
No, I know what they gave you. I mean, I read the book, and I still kind of feel like the more valuable stuff came from the fire.
But if Maury's doing a real investigation and he's holding out the truth, the people that have talked to him, the people that did the case, and he's not looking at this stuff and they're not helping him try and understand, I mean, that's trying to cut. That's like cutting your investigation in half. It's not how you do it.
You know, your stuff, the stuff you present in the book is very good. And a lot of it obviously has never been seen before. The book is definitely a win for the people in the lone gunman camp. But at the end of the day, it's still, it's strong circumstantial evidence, but it's still just circumstantial evidence. Right. You know what I mean? So there's no, you don't have a smoking gun either, but you do present a lot.
But I got stacks. Right.
Yeah. Right. So when people read your book, people will be 99% sure that he wrote those letters. I think it will put to bed all speculation that somebody else might have written the Borelli and Breslin letters, because as we spoke about before, when people write things, they write the same way most of the time. They use a lot of the same phraseology, no matter who they're writing to. You can tell a person's writing style when you've read enough of it. And so what I loved about it was that it especially with that one issue, the letters, I think people are going to come out of reading the book having a whole new perspective.
That's what changed my mind, Anthony. That's what changed my mind.
I can't wait to read Neo's book. I can't wait to read it. And I will accept it. As I've always said, like I even used to say to Manny on the show, you may be correct that he was alone. I don't believe that. Now, I called him the master manipulator, and he is a master manipulator. There are too many contradictions that leave the story open. Now, what Maury Terry did, he had a peculiar personality. I know he had a lot of fear when I was writing to him in 2014. And at the same time, he had a very strange personality. If I met John Rinciari, and Rinciari congratulated me on my book and the emergency unit detective, and then he said, but I find it stretched a bit about Charles Manson and Son of Sam. I would never turn my back on the man. And I'd say, come on, let's sit down.
Right.
I'll tell you why I believe this. But Terry was not like that. In some respect, I think he became.
Again, hold on, man.
Let me
Hold
finish.
on. Again.
Oh, let me finish. I think he became different from Hank Chinotti, who really suffered damaged goods. There's something damaged that happened.
But
And
you're telling me right there he turned down somebody. You're investigating. I just went over, he turned down all police help. Now you're telling me some other guy that knew Berkowitz tried to even talk to him, he turned him down.
oh no,
What
not
investigative?
No, I didn't say that.
Well,
John-
that did happen, by the way.
John Rinciari
Yes.
admired the book. And then when he said, I found it a bit far-fetched, the Charles Manson connection,
Which
all
a lot of people said.
he did was turn
Everybody.
back on him. And if I had written the book, would have said, oh, Mr. Rinciari, detective, come on, let me explain to you why I have this. Okay?
Right.
So, I mean, mind you, if you see the very first show I ever did with Jason and Manny, I come out angry at Maury Terry. I don't give him a pass. I come out angry with him. I don't like these people who will not speak coherently and will not want to exchange ideas and converse once they've opened something up. Ed Sanders is another one. Why is he quiet? Why doesn't he talk to anybody? Somebody, a friend of mine writes to him and he says, who are you? She explains who she is, and then case closed. He doesn't want to know anyone. I
Do you know
don't
what
like.
I find interesting, Eric? That you never see David when he's talking to Maury disagreeing with anything Maury says. He never disagrees. He agrees to everything Maury asks him.
And that's exactly what he does with practically everyone,
Yeah.
even without Thompson. He sells.
Um,
Now,
He
I-
lets them go. He
I-
lets them narrate the story they want and
Yeah.
lets them go.
Okay, listen, I will tell you this. Let's take, let me see, what is it about? I just lost my thought. It was something very, very important about what Berkowitz did.
Go ahead, I'm with you.
No, I just lost my thought. I just lost my thought on it, but it was very important. It'll come back to me. The letters. The person who wrote those letters was also quite an erudite person, in my opinion. There was some erudition there. Even, I'm not saying that he was a great intellectual, but you take the word women instead of women, WOWE. So
Demon.
the association of women being demons.
Right.
But someone then said to me, and I have an interest in linguistics, that is also an older English, an Anglo-Saxon form for woman or for women.
And he does use a lot of English phrases in his letters, doesn't he?
Yeah. And then, of course, I do believe, I've put this forth, what if by Sons of Sam, he's pointing to Sam Carr's sons, but what if it has something to do with the military? Uncle Sam wants you. What if
Right.
it has,
Yeah, I have that. Yeah, I got the meaning, what you're saying, the product of Uncle Sam, right? Or what if
Eric,
he's
that's a good
saying he's a son of Sam, son of, product of the country, yeah.
Well, your book.
Well, David admits he got the name Son of Sam from Sam Hain the Demon.
Yeah, he was telling Caporelli that it was Sam Hain the Demon and that Sam Carr was a vessel for
who's
that.
Sam
You know,
Hain?
yeah.
Who is he?
Sam Hain. David describes it as Sam Hain, but it's called Samhain, and it is a Gaelic festival celebrated on the 1st of November every year.
Yeah. And when I looked that up, because, when I talked to Caporelli about that, and I said, okay, I'm going to look at this again. Maybe I missed something. I look it up, and it's got nothing to do with anything. So I don't know why.
I think David might have been told that this, because the clip I've got, he's saying, we worship a high-ranking demon called Sam Hain, and I abbreviated it to Sam.
Right.
And I'm like,
That's what he
who
was
told
saying,
you
yeah.
that?
Well,
Who told you that?
I think those are all moot points because I think Neo, I read the book and I think you nailed it. I think you know who the son of Sam is,
Yeah.
you know, in the letters, right?
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
the last chapter of your book, and that's I think
Yeah.
you're spot on with that. I think the people who read the book are going to come out with no doubt that he wrote those letters,
Right.
and that's a big part of the whole puzzle. It's one piece of the puzzle, but it's a big part of it. You
Right.
know, because once you get past that, it was him who wrote these stupid ass letters.
But Anthony, you're being objective. You say it's possibly Berkowitz, but you think possibly someone else also.
The author of the letters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, look,
he uses a lot of code. You know what I mean?
I don't like to take hard positions on things.
Yeah.
But you know, as far as moving the needle, you know, Neo's book does a great deal to move the needle towards Berkowitz being the author of the letters.
Mhm.
You know, I think you'll be convinced. You know, to a as close a degree of certainty as you can possibly.
Yeah. I was 100% convinced that David wrote the first letter, but didn't write the second letter, and now I'm convinced he wrote both.
I actually do. I never doubted that Berkowitz wrote the letters, but that does not sway me that other people.
I can even show you, the same letters in both of those letters. If you take them at certain places, the H's, the G's, the I's, the S's, they're the exact same.
Right. So I don't think we'll ever be able to exclude to an absolute certainty, or even to a considerable certainty, that other people were somehow accomplice to the crimes. And I think the only thing that could have done that would have been a proper investigation once they had Berkowitz, and that would have involved hiding him from the cameras, doing lineups, doing doing lineups, doing photo arrays, getting the people who saw him at the scenes to identify him and say, "Yep, that's him." I'm certain that's him. That would have gone a long way towards saying, "Yeah, it was all him." But they never did any of that. And when you listen to those interviews conducted by the DA's office in '79, it's all, so now that you've seen him on TV and you saw him in the courtroom and all that stuff,
right?
Is that the guy? Are you sure? And that's the most worthless kind of identification that there is. At one point, one of the girls even says, "Oh yeah, now that I've seen him and I've seen him acting the way he did in the courtroom, I'm sure of it. I have no doubt." That's worthless. You saw the guy in handcuffs, in courtroom, being charged with the crimes, acting like a lunatic in the courtroom. You can't put that together and say, "Oh, that's the guy I saw the night of."
It's shallow. It's shallow.
Anthony, do you think it's because it was so high profile, they just wanted to parade him like a trophy and go, "Look, we've got the guy."
Absolutely.
Sure.
And
This goes back to the
been-
Charles Lindbergh case.
If it had been anyone less high profile, he would have been scooted around the back. No one would have seen him, because it was
Right.
David
And
Berkowitz, son of Sam. He was paraded.
some months back, I had said to Neo something that he was that really kind of he didn't like, and I don't know if you remember this. I was saying, when I was telling you how the mayor is the commander-in-chief of the police department, once he steps up publicly and takes a position like that, like it's over, we got him, Neo and a lot of others sometimes question the lack of reports suggesting a narrative to the contrary. I said, well, once the commander-in-chief of the department, digs into a position like that, well, everybody else, the chiefs, the detectives, whoever is involved in any potential investigation would be going against their commander-in-chief's position if they were to write such a report, espousing another theory or something like that. So you're not going to see anything like that. You're not going to. They don't go against the grain.
Right.
Beam was illegal. That's a fact.
I agree,
Well,
but
was
when
it-
we have the reports, I don't. I try not to assume. It's not that I don't disagree with you guys about the cops being dishonest. It's that's what's in front of me. Unless I can have evidence or proof to combat what's in front of me with, I mean, I have to go what is written. I have to go. Not that I have to, but I have to take that with more weight than my assumption.
Well, that's valuable what you're doing, Neil. But I want to bring out 4 quick points. Let's go to the Cropsey by Barbara Zeman.
Go ahead, Eric.
In that film Cropsey by Bonacci and Zeman, there's a fellow who knew the man who's in jail now, supposedly for all the sexual abuse and murders.
Andre Rand.
What?
Andre Rand.
Andre Rand. Now, His friend in that film does something brilliant, and this is how easy it is to manipulate people with still photographs and moving pictures. He says, if I have a photograph and I say, my God, look at this man's face. This is Satan himself. Look at he did abuse these children. He did murder. And you give it to people and they go, oh my God, yes. Oh, no, please, I wish I had never seen it. But then he says you take that same photograph with different people and you say, how this man is a saint. He sacrifices himself. He hardly eats. He really is a follower of Christ. Look, oh, the poor man, and now he's suffering. That's how easy it is to manipulate people. That's how easy it is to manipulate people. It's that I say you have to follow things through black and white according to the law, but at the same time, look, this thing about covering up cases. They covered, in my opinion, and your research, I'm sure, Neo, has great value, and I will embrace it and always consider it. And that's a fact. I consider everything. But when you see what they've done to what they do to Berkowitz to parade him forth, and then when you go to Rothstein's story, who never investigated Berkowitz, and all the cases that they shut down, whether it's District Attorney Robert Morgenthau or the Chief of Police, where they went so far, or even the Central Intelligence Agency calling national security to release one of their officers. When you see what happens there with these intelligence agencies, government, and politics, I am very suspicious about the Son of Sam case, how this was carried out. Even the Charles Manson case. Wasn't his first lawyer murdered?
Not
I
sure.
have no idea.
But again, I can tell you that, with the DA opening, and I'm sure there was people that looked into it, it was a waste of money. Still to this day, there is no accomplice to.
You know why that was a waste of money, that people versus the DA? I'm going to be egocentric. You could take every single one of them. I could have done 100,000 times better than them in questioning these people. There's so many things there that are superficial and routine. Let's take George Bird, the detective, when he takes over asking Wheat Carr. Now, Wheat Carr agrees with Hank Chinotti. She doesn't mention him. They both describe that it's not a suicide, the way the gun was, everything, right?
Right.
I'm a detective. They describe it. But she says Michael fell asleep at the wheel. I believe that. Hank Chinotti believes it. He wanted to pull Michael Carr in because he had found something. Case closed. Nothing he can do. He falls asleep at the wheel and crashes. Chinotti never suspects Wheat Carr. That was put out. He never did. But she tells her about Mrs. Linda O'Connor phoning her in hysterics. They killed John. They killed Michael. And I think it's an illusion that people's lives are in danger. And she says, oh, but, and then she says to Bird, but Michael fell asleep at the wheel. Why doesn't George Bird say to her, fine, you believe that John was murdered, but Michael fell asleep at the wheel. But what is your opinion of Linda O'Connor? Why is she speaking so hysterically? What is she frightened of? Those are questions to ask.
Right.
And they're not asked. It's not asked.
No, that was a shoe shine.
Why did they not then get subpoenas if they're spending that money and say, let's have Deagle and Wheat Carr together in the same room and compare the stories? Did they follow up on that? Did they write reports on that? The stories are different, one from the other.
You got me on that one, Eric.
Yeah. Again, that whole reopening by the DA's office in Queens is what I call a shoe shine. It's meant to look like they're actually conducting a real thorough investigation this time, but really all they're trying to do is to arrive at they're trying to reinforce their initial conclusions because they don't want to look like idiots. So,
Right.
From the second the mayor takes that position, that it's all over, tells everyone to, sleep well tonight. From that very moment on, the only thing that's going to get any of them to seriously consider an alternative narrative is 3 teenagers laying in the street with 44 caliber holes in them after Berkowitz is in jail.
Right.
Shy of that, they're never going to take an alternate narrative seriously.
And they may not even link it because they don't want it. You know, they may, even if it was though, and they may, you know.
Right. They might. And that's the brass. That's not the cops. Okay.
Right.
That's the brass and the mayor. That's the political stuff.
You know, because that could have happened. People always say, you know.
Who were the 3 teenagers dead?
No. I'm saying, no. I'm saying the only thing that's gonna get them to conduct a very real and serious investigation into the possibility of accomplices is that if more bodies, 3 or 4 teenagers, pop up dead with 44 caliber holes in them, sitting in cars in the middle of the night. You know what I'm saying? If it continues,
right.
And because it stopped straight away, they're like, well, the shooting's stopped. Like, we've got our guy. No other shooting.
Right. Shy of that, they're gonna steer all talk of they messed up, you know,
Eric,
into the trash.
Eric, do you have anything you'd like to get off your chest, sir?
Get off my chest?
Neil, you want to talk about the ticket, Cataneo?
I don't know about what ticket? The traffic ticket?
Why? What'd you have with that?
Well, what I told you about that, the little, why it was written and all that. I told you, me and other cops, when they were doing the 40th anniversary stuff on TV, Cataneo was interviewed for one of those things on TV, and he said something that I could have told you before I even saw him on TV. Something that popped right off the page at me when I was looking at a copy of the ticket on the computer. And just the fact that when it was written and how it was written. Do you remember what I'm getting at here?
Yeah.
What ticket are we talking about?
The summons that he got by the fire hydrant.
Yeah, and because you say that, I tend to think that, a lot of people think he parked right over the fire hydrant. I tend to think, that would make like he did it on purpose. I don't think he was like right on top of the fire hydrant. I think you're right. It was the end of the month. He may have been 2 feet instead of 3 feet, and I gave him that ticket, so.
Right. So I'm going to explain to everybody now. And this is the kind of stuff that the brass just hated me for, the Yonkers, right? This is what they hate me for now, for exposing some of the secrets. They're bullshit, and City Hall's bullshit, right? Because the reason that this guy wrote that ticket at 2:15 in the morning or whatever it was on the last night of the month is because he was behind on his monthly quota. People always ask, is there a quota? Do cops have to write a certain amount of tickets? Well, yeah, of course there is. There's an Eastchester cop that was fired, for certain reasons that they came up with to fire him because he was giving an awful lot of resistance to the monthly ticket quota. And he's going through the ringer right now. He's got an attorney. He's fighting it and everything. But they take this stuff very seriously. And actually, it doesn't really even come from the brass. It comes from City Hall. The chiefs, the commissioner, they don't make any extra money if cops go out and write a bunch of tickets. It's the City Hall. They want their revenue. Right? So the order to have the cops out there writing summonses comes from City Hall down to the brass and comes down to the precinct captains who make sure that the lieutenants and the sergeants are making sure that the cops are out there writing summonses. And usually every cop has a number that he's expected to write on a monthly basis. Now in Yonkers, it was, I have to be honest, it was relatively low. It was like 15 to 20 a month. Basically, they wanted one summons for every day that you worked during that month. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to write exactly one summons each and every tour that you work. But, at the end of the month, they tally it up. Did you work 22 days this month? Okay, then we're going to look for you to have about 22 summonses. All right. That's basically the way it worked. Now, the guys like Cataneo, who in the interview said, I was never really a ticket writer, but it really bothered me that car was parked by the hydrant. And it's like, well, why did it bother you so much? It happens all the time. Like if it bothered you that much, you probably shouldn't be a cop because you're getting too emotional over something that's commonplace. But he was lying because he couldn't say on camera that the only reason he wrote the ticket is because he was behind on his monthly number and it was the last day of the month.
Anthony, I've heard someone else say exactly the same thing as you just did, that they were behind on their ticket numbers and they had to get their quotas up.
So in New York State, I don't know if it's a state law. I don't think it's a state law. In Yonkers, you have to be parked more than 15 feet from the hydrant.
15 feet.
Right. So if you have,
I don't know if it's that far, but go ahead.
No, I think I remember. It says right on the ticket book. You just check the box. when you issue it.
gonna look.
Although, from what I understand now, they issue tickets. Even the cops will issue them electronically now, I think. But
You guys do whatever you want anyway. Does it matter?
Well, before then, we had a ticket book, and you had to check off the summons that
Yeah,
you were.
sure. Right.
So
Just
if
like
you're,
Berkowitz's car was parked illegally.
You're
Go
right.
ahead.
It's 15 feet.
Yeah. So, what, you looked it up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
15 feet
you know,
rule.
a fire hydrant summons is low hanging fruit. You can drive around at night. People are sleeping. If they're 14 and a half feet from the damn hydrant, you can write them a
Yes,
summons.
15 feet.
So those are the kind of summonses that the lazy cops who don't write tickets during the month go to on the last couple nights of the month.
Right.
They drive around, they look for those, right? So when I saw that, okay, this happened on the last night of the month, and it happened at 2:15 in the morning. I knew immediately what was going on. I said to myself, "What kind of cop writes a fire hydrant summons at 2:15 on the last night of the month?" Right? Now, I played a little bit of a game with some coworkers of mine at the time, and I pulled up a copy of the ticket because everyone was watching the 40th anniversary stuff, you know, and people were talking about it in the precincts. And I was talking to a couple of buddies of mine, and I pulled up the picture of the ticket on my phone, and I said, "Look, go to this website and look at this ticket. I'm going to tell you right now, if he had done this murder, if this murder had happened on the following night, the night of August 1st, he would have got away with it.
Different scenario.
He would have got away with it." And they said,
Yeah.
"Well, why? What do you mean?" And I made them study it, and I said, "Well, you know, one of you call me when you figure it out." So finally, one of my buddies called me. He goes, "Oh my God," because it was the last night of the month. If it had been the first night of the month, Cataneo would have never wrote that ticket.
Yeah, they left
That car could have been driven over the hydrant and parked on the sidewalk.
2 o'clock in the morning. They wanted to get
Cataneo
home.
drove right past it because he had the rest of it.
Now, what shooting was that where that was done? Was that Judy Placido?
No, that was
No.
the last one. That was the one where he got caught.
Well, you're right, the last one.
Right.
Okay, now you're making me think of something. There's one thing I want to say why I also think Berkowitz was not alone. And like I say, Neil could be correct. He was alone. Let's get back to Herbert Leifer. How come he doesn't ask Judy Placido why suddenly she's startled? And you hear it when she says, "What'd you ask me that for?" Oh, about Patrick O'Shaughnessy. And she said that she had gone to some type of venue, there's dances or something. She's startled when he asked her about Patrick O'Shaughnessy. Then I'd love to speak to Gary Hanley, the lieutenant. He's convinced O'Shaughnessy was involved.
A lot of Yonkers cops were convinced that he was involved.
Right, but he came on the show. He said, based upon the tape, he's innocent, but I still believe he's guilty. And he had said that on the show previous. And the moderator is missing because the question should have been asked why. The question should have been asked why.
Yeah.
Okay. And why did Michael Novotny? I just found the tape I have. I recorded Novotny before in 2016 because I didn't know what was going on with Maury Terry's files. I said, what the hell's happening to his boxes of files? Somebody's got to save them. I didn't know what the bloody hell was going on. And I spoke to Novotny. He says, no, I never believed it, but then I came to believe it.
Yeah.
So I keep myself open, and I'm convinced plus the Christian thing. You forget one thing. Before he had this second conversion, this big conversion, John Mario Comparetto says the guy was like a Bible thumper when he came back from the army. A Bible banger, as we used to call it. So, I don't know if we're ever really going to find the absolute truth. I really don't.
I don't think so. I don't think we are.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
It makes for a good conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
However way you look at it.
But if you're
And we
really
can go on for hours and hours.
Right.
if you're going into it deeply, though, Rena, it's exhaustive.
It's mentally exhausting.
It goes.
It's a rabbit hole. That's what rabbit holes do.
It's
Yeah.
a crazy. It's a big fat son
But
of
just
Sam.
to make
Crazy.
a final point here, like what we ended up talking about it a lot. We got into some other things, but what I was going to say about when we were talking about how the files, all that stuff that Neo got his hands on for his book, how it went missing. Well, I think there was talk that Robert Violante and the Moskowitz family had filed a lawsuit against Yonkers
Yep.
Yes, that's correct.
basically saying that you should have put this together sooner and prevented the last shooting, right?
Yep.
Yes.
I think that, you know, and you know that I know what I'm talking about, you know, from experience. You know, knowing how the brass and City Hall reacts when they see a potentially losing lawsuit on the horizon. Buckle your seatbelts if you want to see some of the measures they take to try to avoid it. You know, to me, I think that they disappeared those files because upon scrutiny of them, a courtroom or at least the media would have very well come to the conclusion that the people filing the lawsuit were right. That there was enough in both the Breslin letter and the letters that he was writing to these people on Wicker Street and in New Rochelle to examine them all and say this very well may be the same guy. And with all of the violence taking place on Wicker Street, it was probably enough to get a search warrant to go to his house and to at least get him on the suspect list. I think that even if it wasn't, they were probably worried that it might be. So I think they disappeared all that stuff.
But that's how I felt.
And that's criminal. And if they were alive, I'd prosecute those men.
I mean, you know, City Hall and the brass, they commit, you know, those sort of, you know, white collar paperwork kind of crimes all the time, and they do it with impunity because they're in with the DA's office.
Why was there no other suspect writing letters? Why is it only David sending letters? Why is there no other letters being sent by anyone else?
What do you mean?
Well, why is it only David sending these letters? If he had accomplices, why weren't other people getting letters?
Maybe
that's a valid point. Yeah.
That's a valid point. Maybe he was the one who was to be designated as the letter writer.
And he had the gun. So he was designated to write the letters, designated to have the 44 in his possession.
Yeah, but how do you know he's the only one with the 44 caliber? He has said that other people shot. He's made statements that other people shot victims.
He says that 44 was passed around, doesn't he?
He has said that, and he's also said he said a lot of hibbity-bibbity in his time.
Each story has two different versions, basically.
Right. And because we don't know the definitive truth, either way could be. That's why I keep myself open. He could be alone, or he could be, as I believe, with others. All right. He's the only one I know of who has openly implicated Wheat Carr as being the shooter of the Virginia Vascarician murder. He's the only one who's ever said she was a shooter.
Well, guys, I think we've had an amazing discussion. We could go on for 4 or 5 hours with this easily.
Yeah.
This was a great show with people from different perspectives coming together. I just wanted to get one thing off my chest. It's moral. I don't feel any guilt. I never looked at 605 files that were sent to me by an admirer. It came after I finished. I did nothing to want to hurt Manny Grossman. He has added that on childishly that I'm giving them to his enemies. I don't know what the bloody hell he's going on about. I just remembered these files. I looked, I see MT shit for 500 files scanned by one person. Maury Terry shit. Those files are valuable. I signed no non-disclosure agreement. I released them morally, and it was not against Manny Grossman. I never met, and I put them in a beautiful format. They were a fucking mess. And I put in the proper names and took away all the people who scanned. You don't know who did what. It was a mess.
You were the one who released Maury stuff?
Yeah. And I called it the absurd and invalid concealment of the Son of Sam files of Maury Terry. And let me end this. In the Rothstein files that are being called shit and worthless, down below, Rothstein wrote, Dean Coral knew Ace Brown. That's back in the 90s.
I'd like to apologize for that if that was taken the wrong way. Again.
No, not you.
No, because when I said before about getting Rothstein's files, how they were shit. Now I'd like to explain myself. They were real, just like Murphy's work. Murphy's work was real. Not saying some of Maury's wasn't, but Murphy's work was real, and so was Rothstein's. It just wasn't connected to the Son of Sam in my research. You know what I mean? So it wasn't shit. It just didn't do anything for me. I needed to explain myself. I'm glad you brought it up, though.
No,
I did.
But in bringing it up, I'm not alluding to you.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I'm not alluding to you. I'm not saying you said that. I didn't even remember you said that.
I said it.
Figuratively. But you know who Dean Coral is? We all know who John Wayne Gacy is.
Yeah.
But Dean Coral is the Candyman.
Candyman, the clown and the Candyman.
Yeah, connected. So there you do have these connections. And who did Dean Coral know that Rothstein said had a statement from? His informant from 1969, when he was only a private intelligence officer, Walter Ace Brown.
To be continued.
These things are, there is a connection. There is a connection with this, but they're not all connected. They're not all connected. It's a mistake to say they're all working from one great mind. This has been great. Thank you for having me back on.
Well, Eric, keep that in your little safe for next time, okay? And then we can continue on, and you can tell us more about that.
Well, the thing is that I don't think Rothstein will be able to answer any of this. He's just lost his sister Marjorie. He came from a family of 11 children. His wife comes from 11 children. He has said over, even in his book, I never want to remember these things. He saw things that I don't think, he doesn't want to put it in our minds, but he saw things that, like any cop, they go home, even if not a detective, they don't want to talk about what they've seen. They don't want to bring it to the little children, their friends, their wives. It's horrific. It's horrific. They don't want to talk even about a car accident and finding somebody mangled, But this will be a great show. Boy, it's going to be almost 2 hours.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on here. It's great.
Yeah, of course.
Again,
it's been an honor to be with Anthony. What a mind you have. You're great. It's a shame.
Well, thank you, sir.
On top of everything.
And I'm glad, Rena, you could give Eric a platform and give Anthony a platform, and anybody else out there who wants a platform to speak their word and side of things is always a good thing.
I will push your book, and if you speak to Carl, well, he's going to hear me saying this. Give him my regards. That guy has to suffer like this, and the other people. But anyway, who knows what will happen if I ever contact Diane Assman.
Who knows?
Yes, we will continue our research, Eric.
Fill that gap up.
And Anthony, you're welcome to join in our research if you like. Diane Assman.
All right, we'll be in touch.
We'll speak again. Shall I stay? Are we speaking off screen?
Yeah, just let me end it. Hang on.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Speak to you soon. Peace out.